The morning started like any other morning at Galactic Academy Station Theta 7. Tae-hyun sat in his usual seat near the back of the xenobiology classroom, watching his classmates file in one by one. The room was full of beings from across the galaxy. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of crystal or light. Tae-hyun was one of only 2 humans in the entire program. Professor Kixtal floated into the room, his 8 tentacles moving in a graceful pattern. The ancient Morphean had been teaching for over 300 years, and his reputation was legendary. Students said he could read minds, though Tae-hyun suspected he was just very observant. "Good morning, class," the professor said, his voice coming from a translator device wrapped around one of his tentacles. "Today I am giving you your most important assignment of the semester. This will be worth 40% of your final grade." The room went silent. 40% was serious. Tae-hyun sat up straighter in his chair. "Each of you will bring a predator from your homeworld," Professor Kixtal continued. "You will present it to the class and explain your species' evolutionary relationship with this creature. Safety protocols will be enforced. All predators must be properly contained." Immediately, the classroom erupted in excited chatter. Tae-hyun heard students around him discussing their choices. The student to his left, a tall crystalline being named Vrix, turned to his friend with obvious pride. "I am bringing a void serpent," Vrix announced loudly. "A juvenile, of course, but still deadly. They can survive in the vacuum of space and hunt by detecting neural patterns. My family has already arranged for a quantum stasis pod." Other students joined in, each trying to outdo the others. Someone mentioned bringing a brain parasite. Another talked about acid spitters that could dissolve metal. A student from Velktari Prime described hunter drones that worked in coordinated packs. Tae-hyun said nothing. He sat quietly, thinking. After class, several students approached him in the hallway. They looked curious and a bit excited. "What are you going to bring, human?" asked a small furry student from Delta Orionis. "Earth is famous for its predators. I saw a documentary about your great white sharks. Terrifying creatures. Maybe he will bring a bear," another student suggested. "Or one of those saltwater crocodiles. Did you know they can bite with over 3,000 pounds of force?" Tae-hyun smiled but did not commit to an answer. "I have a few ideas," he said simply. "I need to think about it more." The truth was, he already knew exactly what he was going to bring. He had known the moment the professor announced the assignment, but he was not ready to share his plan yet. Vrix overheard the conversation and walked over, his crystalline body catching the light from the corridor windows. He looked down at Tae-hyun with barely concealed arrogance. "Earth is classified as a Class 9 death world," Vrix said. "I am sure whatever you bring will be impressive, though I doubt it will match a void serpent." His tone made it clear he did not really doubt it at all. He was certain his choice was superior. Tae-hyun just nodded politely. "We will see," he said. Later that evening, Tae-hyun sat in the common area of the student dormitory. The space was shared by students from dozens of different worlds. The furniture adjusted automatically to fit different body types. Tae-hyun sat on a standard human-style chair, his datapad on his lap. He was watching videos. Video after video of cats playing, cats hunting, cats sleeping in sunbeams. He took notes, making careful observations about their behavior. "Hey, Tae-hyun." He looked up. Hana, the other human student, stood nearby holding a cup of coffee. She was a biology major and had become his closest friend at the academy. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. "Go ahead," Tae-hyun said. Hana sat down and glanced at his datapad. Her eyes widened. "Are you watching cat videos?" "Research," Tae-hyun replied. "Research for what?" Then realization crossed her face. "Oh no. Tae-hyun, please tell me you are not thinking what I think you are thinking." Tae-hyun looked at her calmly. "What do you think I am thinking?" "You are going to bring a cat," Hana said flatly. "A house cat. To present as a predator." Tae-hyun said nothing, which was answer enough. Hana put her face in her hands. "Tae-hyun, this is 40% of your grade. People are expecting real predators. Vrix is bringing something that requires 3 security guards to transport. And you want to bring a pet?" "Not a pet," Tae-hyun corrected gently. "A predator. One of the most successful predators on Earth, actually." "Tae-hyun, be serious." "I am being serious," he said, meeting her eyes. "I have done my research. This is going to work. Trust me." Hana stared at him for a long moment. She knew Tae-hyun well enough to recognize when he had made up his mind. He was quiet and thoughtful, but once he committed to an idea, he followed through. "Fine," she sighed. "But if this goes badly, do not say I did not warn you." "Noted," Tae-hyun said with a slight smile. Over the next few days, rumors spread through the student body. The human was bringing something from Earth, something from a Class 9 death world. Speculation ran wild. Some bet on a tiger. Others suggested a Komodo dragon or even a venomous snake. Tae-hyun let them speculate. He made no effort to correct anyone or provide hints. He simply went about his business, attending classes, completing assignments, and quietly making arrangements. He sent a message back to Earth, to his younger sister. She had been taking care of his cat while he was at the academy. The arrangements were made. Transportation was scheduled. Everything was in place. On the day before the presentations were set to begin, Tae-hyun received a small transport pod. It was nothing like the massive reinforced containers other students required. It was a standard pet carrier, the kind any Earth family might use for a vet visit. Several students saw him picking it up from the cargo bay. Word spread quickly. By evening, half the academy had heard. Rix found Tae-hyun in the dining hall that night. He was not alone. Several other students followed him, looking amused. "I heard you received your predator today," Rix said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Such a small container. How interesting." Tae-hyun looked up from his meal. "Yes, it arrived safely. My void serpent required a specialized quantum stasis pod," Rix continued. 3 security officers supervised the transfer. It is currently being held in the high-security containment lab. He paused for effect. "Where is yours being kept?" "In my room," Tae-hyun said simply. Several students laughed. Vrix's crystalline face somehow managed to convey smugness. "I see," Vrix said. "Well, I am sure your presentation will be memorable." He walked away, his friends following and laughing among themselves. Hana sat across from Tae-hyun. She had witnessed the entire exchange. "You know everyone thinks you are going to fail, right?" she said quietly. "I know," Tae-hyun replied. He took another bite of his food, completely unbothered. "And you are not worried?" Tae-hyun looked at her and smiled. "Not even a little bit." The 2 weeks before presentation day passed quickly. The academy buzzed with excitement as predators from across the galaxy arrived one by one. Each arrival became an event that students gathered to witness. The first major arrival was Vrix's void serpent. Tae-hyun happened to be in the main corridor when the transport team brought it through. The creature was contained in a massive cylindrical pod that glowed with blue quantum energy. Even through the containment field, Tae-hyun could see the serpent's obsidian scales and its disturbing lack of eyes. The creature moved inside the pod, sensing the bioelectric fields of everyone nearby. 3 armed security officers escorted the pod. They wore full protective gear and carried weapons designed to disrupt neural patterns. One of them spoke into a communicator as they moved. "Void serpent secure. Moving to Containment Lab 3. All personnel maintain minimum distance of 10 meters." Students pressed themselves against the walls as the transport team passed. Even contained, the void serpent radiated danger. Its presence felt heavy, oppressive. Tae-hyun watched it go, noting how everyone reacted with instinctive fear. Vrix stood nearby, his crystalline chest puffed with pride. "Magnificent, is it not?" he said to anyone listening. "A juvenile void serpent. In the wild, they grow to 15 meters and can hunt in the vacuum of space. This one is only 3 meters, but still deadly." Over the next few days, other predators arrived. A student from Velktari Prime brought a pack of 6 hunter drones. They looked like a cross between insects and machines, with metallic carapaces and compound eyes that glowed red. They moved in perfect coordination, communicating through ultrasonic frequencies. Another student brought something that looked like a crystal formation, but was actually a living predator that dissolved organic matter on contact. It had to be kept in a specialized containment cube with force fields on all sides. A Morphean student arranged for a brain parasite to arrive. The creature was microscopic but could take control of a host's nervous system within minutes. It required level 5 biological containment and could only be viewed through holographic projection. Each arrival reinforced the same message. These were dangerous, terrifying creatures that required serious containment. The Academy's security team worked overtime, setting up safety protocols for each one. Meanwhile, speculation about Tae-hyun's choice reached new heights. Students accessed the Galactic database looking up Earth's predators. What they found both fascinated and horrified them. Did you know Earth has over 40 species of large predators that regularly kill and eat humans? One student said in the dining hall. Bears, big cats, crocodiles, sharks, even some snakes. I read about something called a hippopotamus, another added. It is not even a predator by classification, but it kills more humans each year than lions do. Earth is classified as Class 9, a third student reminded them. Only one level below the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. The humans evolved there. They must be incredibly tough. The rumors grew wilder. Some students bet Taehyun would bring a great white shark. Others insisted it would be a tiger or a bear. A few thought he might bring something exotic like a box jellyfish or a blue-ringed octopus, both of which could kill with venom. Through it all, Taehyun remained quiet. He attended classes normally, took notes, participated in discussions when called upon. He did not feed the rumors or deny them. He simply existed in his usual calm manner. One evening, about a week before presentations were scheduled to begin, Vrix confronted him directly. They were both in the library, studying for a different class. Vrix approached Taehyun's table with several of his friends. I have been thinking, human, Vrix said, his voice carrying across the quiet library. You arrived with such a small container. Some of us are beginning to wonder if you are taking this assignment seriously. Taehyun looked up from his datapad. I am taking it very seriously. Then what did you bring? Vrix pressed. The entire academy is curious. Why not tell us? You will see during my presentation, Taehyun replied evenly. I think, Vrix said, his voice taking on a mocking tone, that you brought something small because you could not arrange for a real predator. Perhaps transport was too expensive. Or perhaps you realized you could not handle a truly dangerous creature. His friends laughed. Other students in the library looked over with interest. Taehyun closed his datapad and stood up. He was not as tall as Vrix, but he met the crystalline being's gaze without flinching. You are entitled to your opinion, Taehyun said calmly, but I suggest you wait for my presentation before making final judgments. I have made no judgments, Vrix said. I am simply stating facts. My Void Serpent required 3 security officers and a quantum stasis pod. Your predator fits in a container you keep in your room. The comparison speaks for itself. Taehyun picked up his datapad. Size is not everything, Vrix. Sometimes the most dangerous things come in small packages. He walked away before Vrix could respond. Behind him, he heard laughter and muttered comments. Let them laugh, he thought. They would understand soon enough. Hana caught up with him outside the library. She had witnessed the whole exchange from across the room. You are really committed to this, are you not? She asked. Completely, Taehyun confirmed. Can I at least see it before the presentation? Hana asked. I promise I will not tell anyone. Taehyun considered this, then nodded. All right, come on. They walked to his dormitory room. Taehyun unlocked the door and gestured for Hana to enter. The room was standard student quarters, neat and organized. And there, curled up on the bed in a patch of artificial sunlight, was a small orange cat. Hana stared. The cat opened one eye, looked at them both, then went back to sleep. That is Bori, Taehyun said. She is a domestic shorthair. 3 years old. Very healthy. Taehyun, Hana said slowly. That is a house cat. That is a predator, Taehyun corrected. It is sleeping on your bed. Yes, Taehyun agreed. That is part of the point. Hana walked closer to the bed. Bori opened both eyes this time and made a small chirping sound. Hana reached out carefully, and Bori sniffed her hand before allowing herself to be petted. She is purring, Hana said in disbelief. Cats purr when they are content, Taehyun explained. It is a form of communication. They also purr when injured or stressed, but right now she is just happy. Hana sat down on the bed and Bori immediately climbed into her lap. The cat kneaded her paws against Hana's legs, purring louder. Taehyun, this is career suicide, Hana said, her voice gentle but firm. I understand you like cats. I like them too. But this is not what the professor is expecting. Everyone else brought creatures that are obviously dangerous. This looks like you are not taking it seriously. That is exactly why it will work, Taehyun said. He sat down at his desk and pulled up a file on his datapad. Come here. Let me show you something. Hana gently moved Bori aside and joined him at the desk. Taehyun showed her data files, research papers, and statistical analyses. He had compiled an enormous amount of information. Look at the hunting success rates, he said, pointing to a graph. Look at the extinction events caused by cats. Look at their biological capabilities. And most importantly, look at this. He pulled up historical documents and modern studies. Humans have lived with these predators for 10,000 years. We invited them into our homes. That relationship tells you more about humanity than any other predator on Earth. Hannah read through the data, her expression slowly changing from doubt to understanding. You are not trying to show them the most dangerous predator, she said slowly. You are trying to show them something about humans. Exactly, Taehyun said. The assignment is not just about the predator. It is about our relationship with it. And no relationship better demonstrates what makes humans unique. Hannah looked back at Bori, who had returned to her sunny spot and was now grooming herself. The cat's tongue rasped over her fur in methodical strokes. This is either brilliant or insane, Hannah finally said. Taehyun smiled. Why not both? Presentation day arrived. The xenobiology auditorium was packed with students, faculty observers, and security personnel. The room itself was impressive, with reinforced walls and emergency containment fields built into every surface. Multiple exits were clearly marked, and medical staff waited on standby. Professor Kickstall floated at the front of the room, his 8 tentacles moving in a calm pattern. His multiple eyes surveyed the assembled students with what might have been amusement. Today marks an important milestone in your education, the professor began. You will each present the predator you have brought, explaining not only its biological characteristics but also your species' evolutionary and cultural relationship with it. Remember, this is academic scholarship, not entertainment. The presentations began. The first student, a being covered in blue scales, brought forward a creature that looked like a cross between a snake and a wolf. It was kept behind a force field, but even contained, it lunged at the barrier whenever anyone moved too quickly. The student gave an excellent presentation about how their species developed advanced reflexes to escape such predators. The second presentation featured the pack of hunter drones. 6 metallic creatures moved in perfect synchronization, demonstrating coordinated hunting strategies. The student explained how their species evolved collective consciousness to match the drone's hive intelligence. Then came Vrix's turn. 2 security officers escorted the quantum stasis pod into the auditorium. The void serpent was visible inside, its obsidian scales catching the light in unsettling ways. Even through the containment field, Taehyun felt something strange, like static electricity building on his skin. This is a juvenile void serpent, Vrix began, his crystalline voice filled with pride. They are the apex predators of my homeworld's orbital space. They hunt by detecting bioelectric fields, which means they can sense any living creature within a 100-meter radius, even in complete darkness or through solid walls. He brought up holographic displays showing the serpent's sensory organs and hunting patterns. My species, the Krillians, evolved neural shielding specifically to hide from these predators. Our crystalline bodies naturally deflect bioelectric signals, making us invisible to void serpents. This evolutionary adaptation shaped our entire civilization. The presentation was thorough and impressive. Even students who disliked Vrix had to admit he had done excellent work. The void serpent itself was genuinely terrifying. At one point, it turned its eyeless head directly toward a cluster of students, and several of them instinctively moved backward. Professor Kickstall asked several probing questions, which Vrix answered confidently. When the presentation ended, there was genuine applause. More presentations followed. Each one was scholarly and well-researched. The predators ranged from terrifying to bizarre, but all of them clearly required serious containment and respect. Finally, Professor Kickstall called, Taehyun, you are next. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look. Taehyun stood up from his seat carrying a simple pet carrier. It was the kind of container that millions of Earth families used to take their pets to the veterinarian. Nothing special. Nothing reinforced. Just a basic plastic and metal carrier with a small door on the front. Somebody laughed. Then somebody else. Within seconds, at least a third of the auditorium was laughing or whispering to their neighbors. Taehyun heard the comments clearly. Is he serious? That is a pet carrier. The human is making a joke of the assignment. Vrix actually stood up from his seat. His crystalline body seemed to vibrate with indignation. Professor, this is an insult to the entire class. We were told to bring predators, not pets. Other students murmured agreement. Taehyun saw Hana in the audience, her face buried in her hands. He also saw several faculty members exchanging glances, their expressions skeptical. But Professor Kixtal raised one of his tentacles, and the room fell silent. His multiple eyes focused on Taehyun with what might have been curiosity. "I am interested in hearing Taehyun's thesis," the professor said calmly. "Proceed, please." Taehyun walked to the front of the auditorium. He set the carrier down on the presentation table and activated the holographic display system. Then he turned to face the audience. "Thank you, Professor," he said. His voice was calm and steady, showing no signs of nervousness despite the hostile atmosphere. "Before I open this carrier, I want to ask everyone here a question. What makes a predator dangerous?" Several students called out answers. "Size. Venom. Hunting success." Taehyun nodded. "All good answers. Size matters. Venom matters. Hunting success definitely matters." He pulled up a holographic image. "This is Felis catus, the domestic cat. On Earth, we call them house cats. And I'm going to explain why humans are the only species in the known galaxy insane enough to invite apex predators into our homes and call them pets." The laughter started again, but Taehyun continued speaking, his voice cutting through the noise. "Let me tell you about hunting success rates." He brought up a graph. Lions, which everyone knows are dangerous predators, have a hunting success rate of about 25%. African wild dogs, which hunt in coordinated packs similar to those hunter drones we saw earlier, succeed about 80% of the time. "That is very impressive." He paused, letting the information sink in. The room had quieted a bit. Students were actually paying attention now. "Felis catus," Taehyun continued, pointing to the graph, "has a hunting success rate of 95%. When a house cat hunts, it almost never fails." The laughter had stopped. Students leaned forward in their seats. Taehyun brought up more data. "Now let me tell you about their physical capabilities. Cats have retractable claws made of keratin, sharp enough to shred flesh and strong enough to climb vertical surfaces. They have night vision that is 6 times more effective than human vision. They can hear frequencies up to 85 kilohertz. Humans can only hear up to 20 kilohertz. He pulled up anatomical diagrams showing the cat's skeletal structure and muscle arrangement. Their spines are incredibly flexible, allowing them to twist in midair and land on their feet from significant heights. Their reflexes are fast enough to catch birds in flight. They have 30 teeth designed for tearing meat, and their jaws deliver a killing bite that severs the spinal cord of their prey with surgical precision. The auditorium was completely silent now. Even Vrix had sat back down, watching intently. "But here is the most interesting part," Taehyun said. "Cats are responsible for the extinction of 63 species on Earth. 63 entire species gone forever because of this animal. And this is not ancient history. This is happening right now. Cats kill billions of small animals every year on Earth. Billions." He let that sink in before continuing. "And here is the truly remarkable thing. They do not just hunt when they are hungry. Cats hunt for sport. They kill for pleasure. You can feed a cat the finest food, give it everything it needs, and it will still go out and hunt. Because that is what predators do." Taehyun walked back to the carrier. He opened the door slowly and carefully. "Now let me introduce you to Bori." A small orange cat stepped out of the carrier. She paused at the edge of the table, looking out at the auditorium full of alien beings. Her ears were forward, her tail was up, and she showed absolutely no fear. She sat down, wrapped her tail around her paws, and yawned, showing small white fangs. Then she began grooming herself, completely unconcerned with being the center of attention in a room full of strangers from different worlds. At that exact moment, a small cleaning drone rolled across the floor at the base of the stage. It was one of the automated maintenance units that kept the academy clean. Bori's head snapped toward it instantly. Her pupils dilated to almost perfect circles. Her body went low and tense. "Watch," Taehyun said quietly. Bori began to stalk. Every movement was controlled and precise. Her paws touched the table surface without making a sound. Her body moved like liquid, flowing from one position to the next. Her focus on the drone was absolute. Nothing else in the universe existed for her in that moment except the target. She reached the edge of the table. Her hindquarters wiggled as she prepared to pounce. Then she launched herself through the air with explosive speed and precision. She landed directly on the drone, wrapping her paws around it and biting at its sensor array. Several students actually flinched. The movement had been so fast and so focused that it triggered instinctive prey responses. Tae-hyun walked over and gently picked up both the cat and the drone. Bori released her prey and began purring loudly as he carried her back to the table. "What you just saw," he said, "is the exact same hunting sequence used by lions, tigers, leopards, and jaguars. The stalk, the freeze, the pounce, the killing bite. Bori shares 95.6% of her DNA with lions. She's a perfect killing machine. She is just smaller." The room was utterly silent now. Every eye was on the small orange cat, who had gone back to grooming herself as if nothing had happened. Tae-hyun stood at the front of the auditorium with Bori sitting calmly beside him on the presentation table. The cat had finished grooming and now sat like a small statue, her tail wrapped neatly around her paws. Her green eyes surveyed the room with calm indifference. "Now let me tell you the truly remarkable part of this story," Tae-hyun continued. "Humans domesticated cats approximately 10,000 years ago. But we did not really domesticate them the way we domesticated other animals. Cats domesticated themselves." He brought up archaeological evidence on the holographic display. Images of ancient human settlements appeared, along with graphs and data points. When humans began farming and storing grain, we attracted rodents. Mice and rats came to eat our food. Cats noticed this and decided we were useful. They chose to live near human settlements because we provided them with hunting opportunities. We did not seek them out. They came to us. A student raised a hand. Professor Kickstal gestured for them to speak. "But surely over 10,000 years humans changed them, made them dependent on us?" the student asked. "Excellent question," Tae-hyun said. "Unlike dogs, which humans selectively bred for specific tasks until they became completely different. From wolves, cats remain essentially unchanged from their wild ancestors. Their DNA is almost identical to wild cats. Their hunting instincts are unchanged. Their predatory behavior is unchanged. They are not biologically dependent on humans in any way." He pulled up images of feral cat colonies. A domestic cat can return to living wild within a single generation. They do not need us. They choose to stay with us because we are mutually beneficial. But make no mistake, they are not dependent. They are partners who can leave whenever they want. Fricks spoke up, his voice less hostile now but still skeptical. "But it is so small. My void serpent could swallow that creature in one gulp. Size matters for predators." Tae-hyun nodded, not dismissing the point. "Your void serpent is 3 meters long and requires a quantum stasis field, 3 armed guards, and level 5 containment protocols. Bori sleeps on my bed. She walks around my room freely. She sits on my lap while I study." He paused, letting that sink in. "That is not weakness, Fricks. That is confidence. That is what it means to be an apex predator so successful that you do not need to fear anything. Your void serpent hides from threats. Bori does not hide. She has never had to." Tae-hyun brought up images of Earth's big cats. Lions in the African savanna, tigers in Asian jungles, leopards dragging prey up trees, jaguars hunting in rivers. "These are Bori's cousins," he said. "They are larger, but they are the same family. Throughout human history, these animals have killed thousands of us. In some regions, certain tigers became specialized human hunters. The Champawat tiger killed 436 people before it was stopped. The Tsavo man-eaters killed dozens of railway workers. These are not rare events. Big cats have been hunting humans for as long as we have existed." He gestured to Bori, who had begun licking her paw and using it to clean behind her ears. "Humans know this. We know that cats are related to animals that kill us. We know their capabilities. And we still invited the smaller version into our homes, into our beds. We share our food, our space, our affection with them." Professor Kickstal's tentacles moved in a pattern that suggested deep thought. "Are you suggesting, Tae-hyun, that humanity has a unique psychological relationship with predators?" "Not just suggesting, Professor. I am stating it as fact." Tae-hyun pulled up more data. "Humans are the only species in the known galaxy that deliberately cohabitates with predators. We do not just tolerate them. We seek them out. We want them in our lives. He showed images of humans with dogs, with cats, with birds of prey, with reptiles. We keep dogs, which evolved from wolves, pack hunters that can take down prey much larger than themselves. We keep them in our homes and let them sleep in our children's rooms. We keep snakes, some of them venomous enough to kill us with a single bite. We keep spiders. We keep fish that are poisonous. Some humans even keep bears. The auditorium was completely silent. Students stared at the images with expressions ranging from fascination to horror. There is a whole subset of human culture, Taehyun continued, dedicated to interacting with dangerous animals. We have television programs about it. We have professionals who handle venomous snakes for education and conservation. We have people who dive in oceans with great white sharks for recreation. We see something dangerous, and our first instinct is not always to run. Sometimes our first instinct is to get closer. A student from a species that resembled a large insect raised a claw. But why? What evolutionary advantage does this behavior provide? Taehyun smiled. That is the fascinating question. Some scientists believe it is because Earth is so dangerous that humans evolved to be exceptionally good at reading and understanding predatory behavior. We learned to predict what predators would do. Then we learned to communicate with some of them. Eventually, we learned to live alongside them. He walked over to Bori and gently scratched behind her ears. The cat immediately began purring, a sound loud enough that the front rows could hear it clearly through the auditorium's acoustics. This sound is called purring, Taehyun explained. It is a form of communication. Bori is telling me she is happy and comfortable. Cats have multiple forms of communication with humans. They meow, but only to communicate with us. Adult cats do not meow at each other. They developed this behavior specifically to talk to humans. He picked up Bori carefully, holding her against his chest. She settled immediately, purring even louder. This is trust. This is a predator that trusts me not to hurt her, and I trust her not to hurt me. This relationship exists because humans are brave enough, or perhaps crazy enough, to build bridges with creatures that could harm us. Professor Kickstall spoke again. You mentioned that cats hunt for sport even when well fed. Does this not make them dangerous to keep in human homes? It can be, Taehyun admitted. Cats scratch furniture. They knock things off tables. They sometimes bring dead animals to their owners as gifts. They play rough and occasionally hurt their human companions by accident. He showed his hand, which had a few small scars. These are from Bori when she was younger and had not learned to control her strength during play. But humans accept this, he continued. We understand that living with a predator means accepting some risk and inconvenience. The relationship is worth it to us. Cats provide companionship, pest control, and emotional support. In return, we give them food, shelter, and affection. It is a partnership built on mutual respect, not domination. He set Bori back down on the table. She immediately walked to the edge and sat down, looking out at the audience with calm green eyes. Every species here today brought a predator that represents a threat their ancestors had to overcome, Taehyun said. You brought predators you learned to avoid, to defend against, to fear. That is normal. That is logical. That is what most species do. He paused, looking around the room. Humans are different. We do not just overcome predators. We befriend them. We study them not only to defeat them, but to understand them. We build relationships with them. This cat sitting on this table has never had to hunt for food in her life, but she still has every instinct of a predator, and I still invited her to live in my home. That is the human evolutionary quirk. We are fearless, Taehyun continued, his voice growing stronger. Not because we are stronger than predators, but because we refuse to be limited by fear. We look at something that can kill us and ask, can I pet it? We see danger and wonder, and can I understand it? We find the deadly and try to make friends with it. He brought up one final image. It showed a human child sleeping peacefully with a large dog. Another predator descended from wolves. The dog's head was bigger than the child's, its teeth clearly visible even in sleep. Yet both were relaxed and comfortable. This is humanity, Taehyun said quietly. This is what makes us unique in the galaxy. We survived Earth not by running from predators, but by learning to live with them. We built our civilization alongside wolves and cats and bears and snakes. We turned our greatest threats into our closest companions. That relationship defines us more than any weapon we have created or any technology we have developed. He looked directly at Vrix. You asked if I was taking this assignment seriously. I have never been more serious. You brought a predator that your species learned to hide from. I brought a predator that my species invited into our homes. Both are valid survival strategies, but only one required courage. The room remained silent for a long moment. Then Professor Kixtal began moving his tentacles in a specific pattern. Taehyun recognized it as the Morphean gesture of respect. An exceptional presentation, the professor said. You have given us much to think about regarding interspecies relationships and evolutionary psychology. Slowly, one by one, students began to make their own species-specific gestures of approval. Not all of them, and not enthusiastically, but there was a definite shift in the atmosphere. They were taking him seriously now. Bori chose that moment to yawn widely, showing all her small teeth before curling up on the table for a nap. The timing was so perfect that several students actually laughed. Not mockingly this time, but with genuine amusement and perhaps a touch of nervousness. Does anyone have questions for Taehyun? Professor Kixtal asked. Hands, claws, tentacles, and various other appendages rose throughout the auditorium. Taehyun smiled. He had done it. He had made them understand. For the next 20 minutes he answered questions. Yes, cats sometimes scratch their owners. No, it is not usually serious. Yes, humans sometimes die from keeping dangerous animals, but it is rare. Yes, this behavior seems illogical from a pure survival standpoint. But humans have never been purely logical creatures. Through it all, Bori slept peacefully on the presentation table, completely unconcerned with being the center of academic discussion. She was, after all, a cat. She had better things to worry about than what a bunch of aliens thought of her. When the questions finally ended, Taehyun carefully placed Bori back in her carrier. She protested with a small meow but settled down quickly. He thanked the professor and returned to his seat. Hana leaned over and whispered, I cannot believe that actually worked. Taehyun just smiled and whispered back, I told you to trust me. The class ended 2 hours later, after all the presentations were complete. Students filed out of the auditorium in small groups discussing what they had seen. Taehyun stayed behind to collect Bori's carrier and his presentation materials. Taehyun, please wait a moment, Professor Kixtal called out. Taehyun approached the front of the auditorium. The professor floated at his usual height, his 8 tentacles moving in thoughtful patterns, his multiple eyes focused on the human student, with what might have been approval. That was the most unorthodox presentation I have witnessed in 300 years of teaching, the professor said. His voice carried a tone that Taehyun could not quite identify. Taehyun felt his stomach tighten. Had he made a mistake after all? I apologize if it was inappropriate, Professor. I thought, and perhaps the most insightful, the professor continued, cutting him off gently. You understood something that most students miss. This assignment is not simply about predators. It is about relationships. It is about how species evolve not just physically but psychologically and culturally in response to threats. The professor moved closer, his tentacles gesturing expressively. Most species in the galaxy have a binary relationship with predators. They are either prey or rival, fear or competition. Those are the 2 standard responses. He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. Humans have a third option, partnership, coexistence. It is extraordinary when you think about it. Your species looks at a creature that could harm you and sees potential for friendship. That takes a very special kind of courage. Thank you, Professor, Taehyun said, relief flooding through him. You did not just bring a predator to class, Professor Kixtal continued. You brought a mirror. You showed us something about humanity that we needed to see. The assignment asked for analysis of evolutionary relationships, and you delivered that brilliantly. But you also showed us what makes humans unique in the galactic community. The professor's tentacles formed a complex pattern. I am awarding you the highest grade in the class. Furthermore, I would like your permission to submit your presentation to the Galactic Anthropological Society. I believe it would make an excellent case study. Taehyun blinked in surprise. Yes, of course. I would be honored. Excellent. I will be in touch about the details. The professor began to float away, then paused. One more thing. Your cat is remarkable. She demonstrated perfect predatory behavior, while simultaneously showing complete trust in you. That is not something that can be easily explained by evolutionary science alone. Perhaps there are some relationships in the universe that transcend pure survival instinct. With that, the professor left. Tae-hyun stood alone in the auditorium for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then he heard a small meow from the carrier. Bori wanted to go home. Outside the auditorium, Tae-hyun found Hana waiting for him. She was not alone. Several other students stood nearby, looking curious and somewhat embarrassed. "Can we see her?" one of them asked. It was the small furry student from Delta Orionis who had asked about sharks earlier. Tae-hyun smiled. "Sure, just move slowly and let her come to you. Cats do not like being rushed." He opened the carrier door. Bori stepped out cautiously, assessing this new group of beings. She sniffed the air, her whiskers twitching. Then, apparently deciding these aliens were acceptable, she walked forward and rubbed against the leg of the nearest student. The student froze, clearly unsure what to do. Is it attacking me?" "No," Tae-hyun laughed. "She is marking you with her scent. It is a sign of affection and territory. She is claiming you as part of her group now." "The predator claims me." The student sounded both alarmed and fascinated. "Cats are very territorial," Tae-hyun explained, "but their territory includes the people they like. You can try petting her if you want. Gently, on the head or back." The student reached down with a trembling paw and very carefully touched Bori's head. Immediately, the cat began purring. The student jerked back in alarm. "Is that a warning sound?" "That is purring," Hana said, grinning. "It means she likes you." Over the next few minutes, each student took a turn carefully interacting with Bori. Some were more confident than others, but all of them seemed fascinated by this small predator that showed no fear and no aggression, just calm acceptance of their attention. Then Vrix appeared. He had clearly been waiting at a distance, watching. Now he approached slowly, his crystalline body reflecting the corridor lights. "Tae-hyun," he said formally, "I owe you an apology." The other students moved aside, giving them space. Tae-hyun looked at Vrix, calmly waiting. "I underestimated you," Vrix continued. "I assumed that because your predator was small and did not require extensive containment, it was not worthy of respect. I was wrong." His voice was stiff but sincere. "Your presentation was excellent. You showed us something we needed to see." "Thank you," Tae-hyun said simply. "Your presentation was impressive too. Void serpents are fascinating creatures." Vrix seemed surprised by the genuine compliment. Then his eyes focused on Bori, who sat near Tae-hyun's feet watching the crystalline being with interest. "May I?" Vrix asked, gesturing toward the cat. "Go ahead," Tae-hyun said. Vrix knelt down, bringing himself closer to Bori's level. He extended one crystalline finger very slowly. Bori sniffed it carefully, then rubbed her cheek against it. Vrix's entire body seemed to shiver. "I have been researching since your presentation," Vrix said, still watching Bori. "Humans also keep dogs, which evolved from wolves. Pack hunters. And you breed them to help you hunt other animals?" "Yes," Tae-hyun confirmed. "Dogs have been our partners for over 30,000 years. We use them for hunting, herding, protection, and companionship. We bred different types for different jobs. Some dogs are bigger than wolves now. Some are smaller than cats, but all of them are descended from predators." Vrix's body shivered again. "I also learned that humans keep snakes, and spiders, and fish that can kill you with poison. There are humans who keep bears as companions." "Some humans," Tae-hyun agreed. "Not all of us. But yes, there is a subset of humanity that looks at dangerous creatures and thinks, 'I want one.'" "Your species is terrifying," Vrix said flatly. Tae-hyun laughed. "We hear that a lot." Over the next few days, something interesting happened at the academy. Word of Tae-hyun's presentation spread beyond his xenobiology class. Students from other programs came to ask him about Earth and its predators. The database access log showed a massive spike in queries about human evolutionary history. Bori became something of a celebrity. Students would stop Tae-hyun in the corridors to ask about her. Some asked to pet her. Others just wanted to observe her from a distance, fascinated by this small predator that walked freely through the station. One evening, about a week after the presentations, Tae-hyun found a message waiting for him from Professor Kickstall. The Galactic Anthropological Society had accepted his presentation for publication. They wanted to title it, "The Predator Paradox: Humanity's Unique Coevolution with Apex Hunters." Tae-hyun would be listed as primary author. It was an incredible honor for a student, especially one in his first year at the academy. He showed the message to Hana, who was visiting his room. She was sitting on the floor while Bori played with a small toy, pouncing on it repeatedly with precise, controlled violence. "I still cannot believe you pulled this off," Hana said, watching Bori attack the toy. "You brought a house cat to class and ended up writing a paper for the Galactic Anthropological Society." "Sometimes the best way to prove a point is to show rather than tell," Tae-hyun said. "I could have given a presentation about Earth's big cats or sharks or bears. It would have been impressive, but it would not have shown what makes humans unique." He watched Bori play, her movements a perfect demonstration of predatory behavior scaled down to fit inside a human home. Bori shows what we are better than any bear could. She is a predator. She is also my friend. Those two things exist together naturally for humans. For most other species, that is impossible to understand. "Do you think it will change how other species see humans?" Hana asked. Tae-hyun considered this. "Maybe. At least it will help them understand us better. Humans are not just the species from the dangerous world. We are the species that learned to make friends with danger. That is worth understanding." Bori abandoned her toy and jumped onto Tae-hyun's lap. She circled twice, then settled down and began purring. Tae-hyun stroked her soft fur, feeling the vibration of her contentment. "You know what I think is really interesting?" Hana said. "Bori does not care about any of this. She does not care that she became famous or that you wrote a paper about her. She just wants food and attention and a warm place to sleep." "That is cats," Tae-hyun agreed, smiling. "They domesticated themselves because we were useful. They stay with us because we continue to be useful, but they do not need us. They never have. That is what makes the relationship special." There was a knock at the door. Tae-hyun looked up surprised. Visitors were rare, especially this late in the evening. He gently moved Bori aside and opened the door. Rick stood outside, looking uncertain. "I apologize for the interruption. I wanted to show you something." He held up a holographic display. It showed news from his homeworld. Krillian scientists had announced a new program. For the first time in their recorded history, they were going to attempt to safely interact with some of the smaller, less dangerous creatures from their planet. "They are calling it the Tae-hyun Initiative," Rick said quietly. "Your presentation inspired this. My people have hidden from predators for thousands of years. We evolved entire biological systems to avoid them, but now some of our scientists are wondering if perhaps we have been too afraid for too long." Tae-hyun stared at the hologram, genuinely moved. "I do not know what to say." "You showed us a different way," Frick said. "You showed us that strength is not always about weapons or armor or hiding. Sometimes strength is about having the courage to be vulnerable, to trust something that could hurt you. My people are just beginning to understand this." Bori chose that moment to appear at the door. She looked at Vrix, then calmly walked over and rubbed against his leg. The crystalline being looked down at the small cat with something that might have been wonder. "She is remarkable," Vrix said softly. "A perfect predator who chooses peace." "Not peace," Tae-hyun corrected gently. "Partnership. Bori is still a predator. She just does not see humans as prey. We are her family now. That is the difference." Vrix nodded slowly, beginning to understand. He stayed a few more minutes, carefully petting Bori and asking questions about cat behavior and human-animal relationships. When he finally left, he thanked Tae-hyun again. That night, as Tae-hyun prepared for bed, Bori jumped up beside him. She kneaded the blanket with her paws, purring loudly. Then she curled up against his side, warm and trusting. Tae-hyun thought about everything that had happened. He had brought a simple house cat to a xenobiology presentation, and somehow it had changed how multiple species viewed humanity. It had inspired a civilization to reconsider their relationship with the natural world. All because humans were brave enough, or crazy enough, to look at a small predator 10,000 years ago and think, "I want to be friends with that." Bori purred louder, her contentment filling the quiet room. Outside, the stars of the galaxy shone through the viewport. Somewhere out there, species were learning new ways to coexist with the natural world. And it had all started with one human, one cat, and the courage to show the galaxy what made humanity special.